Welcome. Thanks for joining. My name is Anna, and I am coming at you live from Boston this evening. I'm really happy to be with you all this evening, discussing all things gap year, but specifically about identity abroad. And as you'll see throughout, our presentation, these programs and experiences really help you learn about yourself, about the world, and about yourself in the world. And I really want to start off by just saying that, like, I myself have done a fair amount of travel, and every time really do think about my own identity as an Asian American woman and how that can really shape how I travel, experience things, and kind of move about the world. And I really think it's important to talk about. So, with that being said, I'm joined by one of our incredible alumni who will talk all about their gap experience and what it's been like for them to navigate their identity abroad. But before we dive into that discussion, I want to give you a little bit of context on who we are here at EF, why we do what we do, and different programs that we offer. I'll run through a few slides with you to start, and then we will dive into the Q&A portion. So to begin today, I just want to tell you a little bit about EF and about who we are. Simply put, EF is the world leader in educational travel, and for nearly 60 years now, have helped millions of people see new places, experience new cultures, learn new languages, and discover new things about the world and about themselves. So, as you might imagine, this deep expertise and experience running educational travel programs for so long has been and really continues to be really valuable. Many of you may know us already because we work with your high school, and maybe you've traveled with EF Tours or Explore America, and are like to what we call, and when we here at EF are what we like to call globally local. So we have over 52,000 EF staff located in over 100 different countries around the world, which means that we really know what's happening on the ground everywhere we travel. And this, worldwide local presence really allows us to truly understand all of the places our students will travel, because we ourselves live and work in most of those places. And in addition to that support is the global footprint that allows us to provide. We really end up with a unique perspective where we can firsthand see at a really large scale the shifting education landscape right in front of us. And so that's really why we built these programs, because we understand, like you do, that what takes to be happy and fulfilled and successful in this modern world just really looks a lot different now than it did only a handful of years ago. And because more than ever, we're all coming to understand that real growth and learning can happen anywhere, not only within the four walls or constraints of a classroom or on a college campus. So in short, our programs are designed to help students really thrive in this ever-changing world, and to give them space, the tools, experiences, and confidence to take on the world in front of them, and to get students out of their comfort zones and allow them to discover more about themselves, the world, and them, and again, themselves in the world. To come home equipped to take on whatever may be next, whatever, like whether that's a college, job, more travel. So with that being said, let's get into a bit about the programs itself and how it's structured and how this all works. So let's start with the different lengths of the programs. These are your options. So we have short-term programs that last 4 weeks, which I'll talk to you about some of those different offerings in just a minute. We also have semester options that last 10 weeks and look a lot like a semester at college, only you're traveling the globe and getting to experience things firsthand rather than behind a screen or in a classroom. And finally, we have the full gap year option, which is 23 weeks beginning each fall. And that looks a lot like a typical academic year with 2 semesters and a winter break in between them. All of these incredible options, and knowing that everyone needs are unique, our team is here to work with you and help figure out what the right program fit for you will be. Also, keep in mind as we go that regardless of which program you enroll on, this is what's included. So now let's quickly go through our program options for some context. If you're wanting some more details on the program specifically, you can join us at our info session that we host every Thursday, or connect with your gap year consultant after tonight's panel. So short-term programs are all 4 weeks long, and they all happen at different times throughout the year. So these can be a perfect program to fit into your calendar without taking time off from school, perhaps during a summer break. They can focus on a specific location or give you a chance to explore various cities and countries, and you're with the same cohort of students for the entirety of your program. We currently have a couple of different short-term program options. Our first two are our European exploration and Costa Rican exploration, two programs that focus on guided travel. The first is European exploration, which allows students to discover a range of diverse cultures across four major European countries. Then we have Costa Rican exploration, where you will spend 4 weeks exploring Costa Rica's diverse ecosystems and working with local NGOs on sustainability projects. Next, we have our Journey to Japan and Spanish Sojourn, which are focused on cultural immersion, where you'll live like a local and get a chance to learn the language as well. And finally, East Asian exploration is all about guided travel throughout South Korea and Japan. So next, we have our 10-week semester programs, and these are built around the academic semester with departures in September and January. And these are really perfect for students who might be deferring from college, graduating early, or just want to take a little bit of a break during or after their college experience. For just if anyone is out there and looking to travel this upcoming spring, our gap semester programs are filling up and the deadline is coming up, but we can definitely still get you on a program if that is of interest. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out to us after if that is still of interest. As for our Pathfinder program, just quickly running through our semester program options. The Pathfinder is in similar concept to the European exploration, where you visit different cities, focusing on different themes in each one. And this Pathfinder program really pulls together themes around environmental science, history, business, and culture. The Explorer, on the other hand, begins with guided exploration in Europe, moves to a month of language study in the city of your choice, and then a month of service in Thailand before we wrap up in Thailand. So when it comes to language and culture in Spain and Japan, you can experience cultural, authentic immersion while attending a language class at EF's Barcelona or Tokyo campus to level up your language skills and really get immersed fully in the culture. And you'll be able to explore the surrounding cities all over Spain and Japan as well. So the other three ones that I wanted to quickly talk about were the Changemaker, where you'll adventure your way through the diverse ecosystems of Latin America while working with local communities to learn a bit about sustainability in action. Our Voyager program is all about embracing your adventurous side as you explore the natural wonders of Australia, New Zealand, and then discover the rich cultures of Thailand and Japan. And finally, if you're interested in gaining international work experience, and having an extra line on that resume, you'll be able to settle into Stockholm, Sweden, where you'll navigate a 9-to-5 life and be able to, again, just really experience what that working life in the wonderful city of Stockholm is like. So as you can see, there are really a ton of different semesters to choose from, and they're really designed to fit your personal goals, travel lifestyles, and a lot of your bucket list item destination dreams. I also wanted to just share that we do have some study abroad programs. We partner with the world's top colleges and universities like Penn State, UT Austin, and Colorado State University, and a bunch more to facilitate culturally and immersive international education experiences that bring learning to life. So here are a few of our current options. These programs are really, really great for students who are interested in studying more academic coursework at hand and bringing those college credits back to their college experience. And finally, the last program we'll talk about this evening is the 23-week gap year program, excuse me. And this program is broken into 2 different semesters with a winter break in between. So the first semester is all about guided exploration. You'll be able to travel to 12 different cities across the 3 continents with a small cohort of students. And so once you've gotten that grasp of travel and seen a bunch of different countries and continents even, you will be able to kind of culturally immerse in a city of your choosing and really discover what it's like to live a bit more independently while living abroad and learning a language or interning at the city of your choice. So this year really has a little bit of everything and is really a wonderful way to spend your year. So obviously this is a quick run through of what we offer, but hopefully you're getting a little bit inspired and energized by all of this. So we're not going to go into depth on pricing and planning tonight since we do want to switch over to our amazing conversation with our alumni who we have here. But the best next step after this panel is to connect with your consultant or join us at one of our info sessions so we can dig into some more of these details. So with that being said, let's introduce our alumni on the call tonight. So Rowan, if you would want to hop off, if you want to put your camera on and hop off mute, we can all kind of jump in here.
Okay,
Awesome.
cool. Hi.
So tonight we're here with Rowan, who is one of our fabulous alumni. Joti may be joining in a little bit later, but did have a family emergency she had to attend to. So she may or may not be joining in, but we'll definitely have other opportunities to hear from her if not. But Rowan's one of our diversity and equity fellows and an alumni of our program. But we'll let you take it away and introduce yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're coming from, and which program you did?
Okay, for sure. So I'm Rowan. I'm coming from Salt Lake City, Utah, and I did the cultural immersion in language in Nice and the internship in Stockholm. I did the semester program, and yeah, a little bit about me is I currently work in the operating room as an orderly, so I get to assist during surgery and stuff. And then I am going to apply to school for medical sciences. So yeah, I want to be a doctor basically. So that's basically me. I
Awesome.
sorry, I
Thank you
wish
so
I had
much.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing. I just stopped sharing this so we can just focus on the two of us for right now. Awesome. So I know that we kind of discussed a little bit earlier on that this whole kind of conversation today is really, identity based travel abroad. Do you mind by just talking to us a little bit about what your identity means to you?
Yeah, definitely. So I identify as non-binary. Basically, I don't identify really with being like male or female. I feel very in between, and that's where I feel the most comfortable. For me, my identity is really only like I don't care how people most of the time perceive it because I'm very confident in myself. And so yeah, I my identity is really important to me, but ultimately, I feel enough confidence to navigate the world and not feel afraid of how people perceive me. As for how it was when I was traveling, it was really interesting to see how language factors into gender identity. Especially in France, I speak French fluently, and there's not really another pronoun for non-binary people. It is really just il or elle, and then there is a kind of non-binary pronoun, but I just personally didn't vibe with it. So it was really interesting to navigate my identity in that way, especially coming from a state that is very there's not a lot of representation here. So yeah, I hope that was the answer you were looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. I also took French and studied French and definitely noticed that the very gendered language there as
Yeah,
well.
exactly.
But yeah, I mean, before we dive in more, thinking about before you even went on this program and what that experience was like, what did you decide? Like, why did you decide to take a gap program? And where were you in life before you did that?
Yeah, so I was at a pretty pivotal point in my life. I had just finished high school. I had done a few college classes, and I was just feeling kind of like just in between a bunch of change, and I wanted to make sure that I was making the right decision for my future, um, and not wasting my youth on a major or whatever that would end up not being worth it in the future. So I decided I needed a break. I had already been like working super hard. I worked a full-time job on top of school full time. And I was like, okay, I need a break to kind of like learn more about myself and to kind of open up my perspective because I felt like coming from Utah, I had such tunnel vision and didn't understand like a lot of different perspectives outside of even my own city. So by traveling outside of the US, I felt like it would give me a better in-depth understanding of one, how people perceive the US, how people perceive college differently in other cultures. And I think it was really important to kind of look at all those different perspectives and factor it into my own future. So that's why I decided to take it.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you have any like specific goals or anything in particular that you wanted to get out of the program and out of your semester?
Yeah, so I was really excited to go to Stockholm and do the internship because I mean, how cool is it to have on your resume? I did everything here in the US and then I also was an intern in Sweden. And I mean, every interview I've had since that job, they've all been like super interested in that and like they're all super curious about it. So I definitely really did benefit from that part. I think the thing I was looking forward to the most was kind of understanding just the world a bit better. I don't know how else to really phrase it, but,
Yeah.
I think there's kind of felt like I was in a bubble living here, and it was really cool to see just how the world perceives the US and how my own identity has factored into other cultures. And that was something that was for at the beginning, I was really scared of going abroad because I was afraid of like, oh, how will people perceive me as being like a queer person? But it honestly was like so cool to know that there are other communities out there and there are other queer people out there around the world and not just like the small friend group that I had. So I really was so happy that I took it because I got to see more of like people who are like me being represented.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And Jody, welcome in. So excited you can join us.
Hi, sorry. I'm
No
glad to be
worries at
on.
all. I'm glad you're able to join. We were just chatting a little bit about kind of before leaving mentality going in, and of course, kind of with the framework of, identity abroad. So, Rowan, if you don't mind, we'll press pause on kind of and really quick and get Jody up to speed here. In terms of kind of well, I guess we'll have you introduce yourself first, and kind of why you decided to take your GAP program, what you're up to now, and then if you don't mind also just adding in kind of what does your identity mean to you?
Okay. Hi everyone. My name's Joti K. I'm 24 years old. I'm currently in law school in Chicago. And a big reason for why I wanted to take a gap year was after graduating from undergrad, I knew that like the rest of my life was obviously going to be the cliche work, work, work. And I didn't really want to jump into that right after of like 16 years of studying. And I just kind of wanted to take in the my version of like the ideal young 20s of just exploring. And I thought the best way to do that was with EF just because I have traveled with them twice now. I did a program when I was in high school for as a senior and I loved them, like loved the company, everything went so smoothly. So when I found out they had a gap year, it was kind of an easy yes for me. And it just worked out. I've always kind of thought about identity of just like the qualities, your personality traits, and just everything that makes you and how others perceive you. And traveling has always been a big part of that for me. I've been traveling since I was 4. I was born in India and I came to America when I was 4. So for me, traveling has been a huge part of my identity. And I just kind of keep collecting little pieces of my personality from different cultures. And I've been doing that since I was 4, given like I had Indian culture, and then I also had to take in American culture, and I'm just a mix of that plus the 7 countries that I just visited earlier this year.
That's so cool. Thank you so much for sharing.
Sure.
I just asked Rowan about their kind of like decision to take a gap and where you were in life. And I know you said that a little bit more. Did you have any specific goals or anything that you like absolutely wanted to get out of your gap year or gap semester, I should say?
Yes, and I'm glad to say I did end up achieving that. It was more so like of just being in a carefree environment and just learning in a way that wasn't like you're being graded on this and you're being graded on that. And I got to learn so much. I literally have like I look at my pictures from my gap year like on a regular basis, especially when I was like studying for my finals. I was like, okay, at least you like did that. Like it really was motivation to just keep going, being like, okay, like I treated myself to this and it was amazing and it was phenomenal. And just kind of using it as like fuel to add to the fire of like, oh, one day I'm gonna get back there again because I got a little taste of the traveling.
Yeah, I love that. And for either one of you, was there anything on your mind, kind of again, trying to turn your brains back to before you even left for your program? Is there anything like about your identity or what just how you were approaching your semester that like you were either excited about, like worried about? Did you have nerves or were you just like all ago, wanted to get out there, no worries at all?
Yeah,
Rowan,
I mean, I think, oh, sorry, did you want to go?
I was just saying you can go first.
Oh, okay. Perfect. So I think for anyone, it's pretty nerve-wracking to get out of your own space. And for me, I definitely was really nervous about that. I was really scared, like how if I was going to be able to find anyone who was also queer, if I was going to be able to find anyone who would respect my identity. And that was definitely really scary because I had already built up a friend group here that did that. And it took a lot of time to do that. So I was really scared when I was going on the trip that it was going to be hard for me to find people that have that perspective as well. And especially like finding other I was afraid that I'd find someone who was like a really cool person in the UK and then they'd stay in the UK and then I'd go and switch to another country. So, I mean, that was my biggest fear, I think.
For me, I was definitely on like the older side of the group and I have been through college, so I already knew like the kind of obstacles you have to get through when you're 18 and learning how to live with people. And like that was a big thing for like roommates going into EF. And honestly, so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to like live with people who haven't yet lived with like multiple roommates. And at first, like I ended up liking it a lot because I got to see my peers go from how we were in Europe and then coming back to Portugal and seeing like a 180 and like how they'd be like, oh, I actually learned how to like communicate better of being like, I was able to tell my roommate, be like, hey, can we like do this and do that and like see them like set boundaries. So in a really cliche, cringy kind of way, it was like a big sister vibe. So I took it as like, oh great, like I'm gonna have to like go through the roommate thing again with people who have never had a roommate. But it
Right.
honestly was really nice to see people grow and I was like, oh, this is kind of nice, like being a part of someone's journey. So it was really nice. So the thing I was worried about the most, I actually ended up adoring because it was cool to see people get like become the person that they wanted to be with like boundaries.
That's really
Yeah,
cool.
that's
And kind of
awesome.
like Rowan was saying earlier that like these experience or actually Dodie was you who were saying like the experiences that you have when you're traveling and abroad really kind of like almost just like piecemeal together your identity as a whole and those experiences like help you grow.
Yes.
One thing I know I'm one of the gap year consultants, so I talk to a lot of families about like whether or not they want to do this and how to make it happen. And something that I talk to a lot of alum about that I always found surprising, I know students who haven't gone in this program, obviously like the bucket list items, the travel, the amazing experiences is definitely the main part of these programs. But another thing is meeting the people who you're traveling with, getting to know people from other states and other areas, different backgrounds, and kind of being able to experience the world through different lenses. Did you see any of that happening with like the different backgrounds from the US while traveling abroad?
Hmm.
Um, like within our group or
Yeah, I
like
guess within your group. Yeah, just because again, like you were saying, there are some like younger students, some students who had done a ton of travel, some who had never traveled.
could you rephrase the question? I think I'm getting lost on the question part here.
Yeah,
Sorry.
of course. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're
Um,
good, you're good.
oh, what'd you say, Ron?
I am too, so sorry.
Oh,
That's why I
absolutely okay. I was just thinking that again, like you were saying, like, Rowan, I know you grew up in Utah. I grew up just outside of Boston. Like, lived experiences coming into these programs are super different, and everybody has a different identity. So I guess my question was really just, like, did you experience people having those like light bulb switch moments for themselves and kind of gathering these moments that, might be uncomfortable, but growing through them and out of them throughout the program?
Yes, 100%, 150%. I saw a bunch of that, especially for me, like in my time during Thailand, and that's when we were doing like service. I think it was really interesting to see like the different ways people thought like service was done and how they were accomplishing that versus like also helping their peers kind of understand like this is how I see service, and they'd be like, well, this is how I see service, and kind of combine those because I think a lot of people are like, well, I feel like service should be done like this, and then someone else would be like, well, I always thought service was this. And the best thing that I saw was there was no like there was a good understanding of the group when there were like conflicting views on how we thought service was. And one of the things that I respect the most about my group, because my group was like, there were 12 of us that did my program. So it was like you kind of had to be close. And anytime there were conflicting views, like I didn't see anyone get disrespected. And there were people from like East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, like South, everywhere. And like we had very, very different views on how someone was like, well, this activity is this much and this activity is that much, and everyone kind of was just like, okay, let's collaborate together. And I think like seeing that type of open communication at such a young age is really good because I don't think I definitely had that at 18. So I was really lucky to see like what traveling and like how all of these very different individuals could kind of come to a baseline. And I think like the travel part kind of helped them find that baseline.
Okay. Thank you, Jody. So sorry, I just wanted to clarify, by this question, do you mean like did we see how other people's perspectives shifted throughout the gap semester?
Yeah, we can go with that. Let's go with that.
Sorry. I don't know if I just totally scuffed your question
No,
and
no, no,
changed.
you're good.
Um, yeah, so I definitely did see that, and it was pretty cool because I think that sometimes, like I said, like people get stuck in a bubble when they're from especially like smaller places in the US. And it's really cool. Like I noticed it for myself. Like I when I was living in France, in Nice, I had a bunch of roommates who were from Switzerland, and I have had a roommate who was from the Czech Republic. Me and her still talk. I'm actually visiting her next year, too. So yeah, I mean, it was really cool to talk with them because seeing their perspective on my own mannerisms or my own biases from being an American was really interesting. And I think that for the most part, like Jody said, it was really cool how a lot of the people that seemed like they were wanted to be on this type of trip were very respectful and understanding of other people's perspectives, which I was like, I mean, I was so surprised because I feel like at least this generation gets told a lot of the time that we're not being very like understanding of different perspectives and we're very combative. But honestly, like I don't think there was anyone who I had a disagreement with and it got like personal or hurtful. I mean, I remember there was one night actually I was talking about this book, The Republic, with one of the other students. Um, we were walking back to our hotel in Paris, and he and I just had a conversation for the entire like 50-minute walk, and he had a very different perspective on how education should be structured in comparison to me, and it was just so cool to have that type of conversation. And at the end, like we were still like great pals and we still like text and hang out. Um and I don't know, I just thought that that was like so unique and special because it's something that I feel like is less common nowadays. And I just love that there were so many people who were willing to see different perspectives and have their minds changed. So
That's really awesome. I'm so glad to hear it. And thank you for bearing with me with that confusing question. So I'll try to give you a more straightforward one this time. But so for either one of you or both, how do you kind of move? I know we were talking kind of pre-program, now moving while you were on program. And I know you both have had a little bit of time to kind of have everything marinate and kind of think about your experience. How did you feel like your identities or intersecting identities impacted your gap program experience?
Jody, do you
Um,
want to take this one?
Sure. I like I I met a lot of friends that were not like on my like trip or my cohort, and I still talk to them to this day. And I made friends in Australia who are living in Italy now, and I made friends with my directors and leaders of our service that we did in Thailand. I actually just one of my peers in my law class is friends with a director that works for EF in Thailand. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah, I was like full circle. But I think like everything, I truly tried to be in the moment with everything that EF was trying to teach us. Cause you know how there's always like a purpose to what you're doing for everything. And I did try to focus on those purposes and try to take that away. And I think I did that successfully because there are like a lot of my mindset that has changed. And I love being open-minded, and I will gladly be wrong when I need to be so that I can like learn. And I think like I learned a lot from every single country that I went to, whether it was the tour guide we had, whether it was a peer from like another state, or if it was someone that was our director. And like again, like I'm gonna sound like so annoying hearing people talk about your travels, but like I do talk about my travels like in any conversation that I can sneak them in. And it's because of like everything that we did from like, especially in Thailand, we did a lot of like rock climbing. And at first we had done like the indoor one, and I was like, oh, this is nothing. I used to do that in America all the time. And then at the next place, they were like, hey, we're gonna do some more rock climbing as like a team bonding thing. And it was like a legit like rock mountain, and we were just going for it. And it was like 100 feet up, whatever. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And I was like looking at people that were locals doing it, being like, that's so cool. I wish I could do that. And the next thing I knew, EF was like, you are, you are doing this. And like, it was super cool to do that. And I think like learning to like take that first step, which is always the hardest for anything that you think is like super cool, but you're scared to do it yourself. So I learned a lot of courage. I learned to have more of an open mind with the kind of food that I eat. I learned to be okay with being myself, because I feel like when you go to different countries, people have different things that they want to take away from that. And you need to understand that sometimes what you want to do is not what everybody else wants to do. And that because you came here for experience, that you should still go. Of course, like make sure it's like safe and like daytime and whatever that needs to be like figured out beforehand. But one of the things I like refused to do in the States was like I hated going out to eat dinner alone. I had never done that. It was like I needed to grow up. And I did that a lot. Like when I was abroad, I'd be like, well, I really want to go try that restaurant. So I'm going to go, if it's maybe not my friend's favorite cuisine, but I'm going to go try it. So like independence, courage, just being more open-minded, like those are my big takeaways of like what I got while being there. And it wasn't even things that I was trying to do. I was just really embracing the program and what you guys wanted me to learn.
Yeah, that's awesome. I guess for me, in terms of like my identity functioning with like learning stuff abroad, was I think that being non-binary gives me a very interesting perspective, because a lot of the time people think I'm a dude, and then I'll start talking and then they'll be like, I don't know what's happening here. So I get kind of I get to see a lot of both perspectives, which I think is like honestly like a blessing. It's pretty cool because I get to understand, I think, more identities outside of gender. Um but it was really interesting to see, like, as a pretty feminine presenting person, I feel like how like respected I felt in like Sweden, for example. Like when I was on my internship there, it was really interesting how I felt like my point of view and my feedback, even though I'm perceived as a woman, was still like super well received, and it felt more like I was equal to my male counterparts than I am here, at least in the the city that I live in. And I don't know, I think that was a good learning lesson to be like, to give me some confidence and like, oh yeah, I'm not crazy. Like I actually do have good ideas and I can contribute a lot. Sometimes it's just harder for people to take me seriously based off of my identity. As messed up as that is, but that's not always the case. And unfortunately, I just was from a place that was an exception to that rule. And I think that it also really enabled me to see more of like my upbringings, how it just like I how it's just influenced me to be like I don't even know any other word for it, but besides just like so disconnected from my own like community. Like I had never seen any like gay cuisine but until I went onto this trip, and then I saw like a gay bar, and I was like, "Oh, those exist." I had no idea. And I don't know. I think that that was a really cool learning lesson for me because it made me feel a lot less isolated. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. No, that's so important, so interesting to hear. So thank you so much. Um, Talking about a little bit, I know everyone can probably hear can and think about, travel is amazing. We have our amazing camera rolls we come our way with, but there are also some like hard times, and just like we're tired, we're hungry, we're uncomfortable. So thinking about while on program, like what did your support system look like on program, and in terms of harder moments of challenge, like who was that support system, and kind of what was your relationship like with your advisor?
My support system was definitely two to three girls that I had met on the trip and like go-tos. And outside of them, like I will forever have everything good to say about my advisor because I think I called her maybe 20 times just to like, not even if I had a problem, I'd be like, hey, like this is happening, like blah, blah, blah. And like, I just actually became like good friends with her and just like talking to her. Anytime I had a concern, she like validated everything I had to say, even if maybe she didn't agree. I don't know to this day because she was very like, you are so right, like totally right, like valid, valid, valid. And I think like that's the best thing you can kind of hope from your advisor. And like she like for a lot of the times when you're going into like different places, she would always just like hit me up with every country. Hey, hope it's going well. Let me know if you need anything. Hey, how was this part of like the trip? Did you like this part? And I'd be like, yeah, I really like this. And then like this one, maybe we can do differently. She'd be like, say less. I'm noting it down as we speak. So like it was just really felt like someone did value and care about my experience outside of just me and my parents. And that was my advisor for me. And I loved her. And I think my trip would have been very different if I didn't have her specifically. I think everyone else is probably great, but I really, really liked mine. And she was just like, she was doing her job. She was advising me throughout all of those 3.5 months, and I got really lucky.
It's
Yeah,
amazing.
I
I'm so
feel
glad
the
you had a
same.
good experience.
Yeah, my advisor was really cool. It was Sarah. I really appreciated, like you said, how she just took me very seriously and like was very like it felt like she was fighting for me. Like whenever I needed her to. She was definitely like in my corner and that was super awesome. So yeah, I really felt that she was amazing. So if anyone ends up having her, she's going to be great. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think in terms of my other support system, it was kind of weird because for the first 2 weeks, I was like with like a ton of people that I knew super well, and then I had like the main central group of people that I would hang out with. And then when we all split up, we all like seriously like scattered. I didn't see them again until we went to Portugal. So it was kind of hard to find other people my age who I related to. And especially when I was like in Sweden, it felt like I was coming into that experience with a very different perspective than a lot of my peers. And that made it harder to connect on a lot of levels. So for me, what was the most helpful was those people that I met during the first 2 weeks, and I would reach out to them and they would reach out to me and they'd be like, "Hey, how are you doing? I hope you're like, what's going on?" And I don't know, it like that was great. And even like finding roommates, like when I was in Nice, I met some incredible people who became my roommates, and I are like I said, one of them from the Czech Republic is like a really good friend of mine now, and I'm planning on seeing her again next year. So I don't know. I think it was kind of just putting myself out there and being willing to find new people when I did feel lonely was like that's honestly the best thing you can do is like go to a cafe and like just have a random conversation with another American, and it'll I don't know. I feel like that was just what helped me the most was literally just doing the scary thing and just talking to people even when I didn't have a lot of people I knew. So
Awesome. Yeah, that's so cool. Just again, like both of you were saying, just living in the moment and kind of going with the experience that's right in front of you. And even if it can be a little scary at first, just kind of rolling with that and seeing where it brings you. That's super cool. So yeah, our last couple of questions are kind of thinking about coming back to the US after program and like kind of thinking about your experiences. And obviously identity is kind of the central part to this conversation today. So how did you kind of like your identity, as we all have talked about, is like really going to give you the power to make the most out of your experience and be who you are. How would you say that your identity and your experience have become kind of your superpower on program and being able to take that onto your next steps as well?
I can go. For me, it definitely I felt so much more empowered, and I was a lot more willing to stand up for myself. Before the program, I honestly was kind of like, I won't say like I was a quiet person, but I wouldn't really like, I wasn't going to stand up to people or for myself. And when it came to advocating for myself, I would be kind of sheepish and like try to get my parents' help. But now that I've come back, I feel like I know that there is another place where my identity, it does not matter, and I deserve better. I deserve to be respected, and my perspective should be heard no matter what. And so now I feel a lot more willing to fight for myself, which has been which has served me like really well, especially like working in the operating room, like now being able to talk to an anesthesiologist and be like, "Hey, I think we need to position the patient this way or let's keep this in mind." And talking to like higher ups and having my perspective heard and giving reasoning and being confident in what I say was something that I kind of struggled with before. And I don't know, I think that this trip just really, really helped me with building the confidence to say what needs to be said.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Um, for me, I it became such a big part of my identity that I booked another trip while I was on that trip for like a month after. I was like, okay, I cannot stay home, which is really nice. And it's just like kind of become a big part of forming a relationship with like people who are interviewing me for jobs and stuff. Cause I feel like traveling is a big part for like a lot of people. And there's like very like, yes, like the numbers vary, but like I feel like the people that like I'm running into have done like some sort of traveling that it's a good like common base like bounce ideas off of. So it's really helped me in a professional setting. It's helped me in a social setting because if there's like something to talk about, I'd be like, I saw monkeys in Thailand. And you're just like going with it. And it helps with like, conversation. So I think it added a lot to my communication selection for what I could talk to about. And I am like an extrovert, so I do love to talk anyways. And it just kind of added, and I'm always constantly looking for like cool stories to share about and like to put into my little memory box of my life. So it added on to like a lot of that. And now I'm kind of just like chasing the next like travel high. So like I really am just like constantly trying to like book more flights because I feel like that is what gives my life purpose.
Oh, for sure. The amount of like cool icebreakers I have now is insane. Like I literally like I have so many conversations where I just casually drop like, "Oh yeah, I worked in Sweden for a little bit," and it's so funny. Like, and people love to hear about it. I will say I try to not sound like the person who's like, "Oh, I traveled and I'm super cool because of it," but it is pretty like it's a good icebreaker. And then to talk about like living with a host mom is also like, I mean, it's interesting. Like, so I love that too. It's great.
Yeah. I totally feel you on the icebreaker things. I feel like before I know we're not talking about me here, but before I traveled, I was always like, A, Anna, and that rhymes that starts with an A like apple. And now I'm like, yeah, I actually got spit on by a camel when I was in Morocco, and there was a gas station with a camel, and it spat on me. So like, there are just these fun things that like spark up conversations, like you were saying, that are really fun to talk about, obviously, and I could talk about them all day. But to kind of like wrap us up, I know it's the evening time. I think we're spanning across 3 different time zones here. Can you tell me or tell the group a little bit about your current role as the Diversity and Equity Fellows for our affinity groups here at EF?
Do you want to go first, Rowan?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, it was really important to work on this affinity group. As soon as I heard that EF was looking for someone who would create an affinity group, I immediately was like, okay, I know I have a lot to add. And, you know, like I said earlier, it was kind of isolating when I was in Sweden, and it felt like I was jumping into the experience with a different perspective than a lot of my other peers. And by creating this group, I felt like I would kind of connect people a little bit easier to each other. So then you don't feel so isolated for your identity. And like, for an example, and I don't mean to bash anyone who uses these phrases, I feel like it's totally normal. But when I was in Sweden, there was a dinner that we had as a group, and someone proposed having a boys' night and a girls' night. And I just kind of was like, okay. Like, I don't really fit into that equation. So it was really awkward. And I wanted to make people who go through that type of experience feel less awkward about who they are and feel confident that there are other people who will support your identity. And no matter what country you're in, and you will be able to find that person. And of course, that there are other people who are traveling and probably share a very similar perspective to you. I think that people are often more similar to each other than we are different. So it's great to kind of show other alumni that this is not a totally isolating experience as well. In addition to that, I also include a ton of resources in the chat. I want to make sure that people know where to find other safe spaces, especially if you're traveling in a country that's maybe a little bit less understanding of our identities. So that's kind of my role as the moderator in the alum affinity group. So yeah.
Um, I, for my affinity group, I'm in the diversity one, and I just was really, really excited that the position was even available, and which made me like excited. I was like, okay, I gotta apply. But during my trip, there were like a couple incidents where like again, like the big sister energy was coming up, and like it was sometimes like I feel like everyone kind of goes through it when like you're first kind of getting like a reality check of like how people might perceive you differently given like who you are and all that stuff. And I have like had experiences like that like before where I have learned how to react and how to handle and all that stuff. So like that part of like my experience came in handy when I would see like some of the girls and guys like be like, well, that person just said that to me and that about me and all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, like let's have a conversation. Let's talk about it instead of like just talking about it behind and this never actually like confronting the problem. And it was done in a really healthy way. And I like being that mediator for people, and kind of finding that common ground. I'm a Libra. I'm really like astrology. That's a big part of my sign, but like,
Oh,
yeah, so I was like, okay, like I really like that. And I kind of just wanted to keep being a mentor in that way for like people that I think like should not have those type of experiences hold them back in their trip. And I was able to do that for some of my peers. And like, if they had a bad day because of something that was said or done, whether that was from like peers or from locals or from just people traveling also, it was really nice to kind of boost them back up. And thankfully I have not had to do that as like the affinity group leader. Like everyone's doing great, and that was the goal. And I wasn't even like worried for them. I was like, yeah, it's gonna be fine. Like it's very rare. um and I kind of just like check up on them. I told them right off the bat, I was like, I'm really here to be a friend. It's super like laid back. And they have treated it like such. So very laid back this entire semester. I'm excited for like the new group of kids to come in for the upcoming semester and like meet them. But I just really like it. I feel like I can do what my advisor was doing for me at like less of a degree, which is like totally fine. But it's just nice to give back to a company in a way that I saw was really beneficial and helpful to myself and to my peers during the trip. So I just like to give back.
Well, thank you both so much, both for your work as the Diversity and Equity Fellows, but also for spending this hour on, I don't even know what day it is, on a Wednesday evening. So really, really appreciate you both. And thank you so much for everybody who tuned in this evening. Again, we are always here to chat, to connect, to talk about your next steps. So I hope with that, I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. And again, Jody and Rowan, thank you so, so much for being here tonight.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you for
everyone.
inviting us.
Okay. Have a great night, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.